Hey there, this is Andrew, and welcome to another episode of Better Know an Archetype. This one I'm going to be talking about today is key cost increase, and I can hear you now. This isn't really an archetype on its own. It is a subset of Amber Control, but it's often it might be useful even in strategies that don't involve stealing or anything like that, just to slow the opponent down a little bit. And usually it's really not going to be a standalone thing. You can't be all about stopping the opponent. You need to have your own plan. But I wanted to go over some of the ways to mess with key costs and kind of how they fit into other bigger strategies. So by the way, my search here, not exhaustive. There are a lot of cards in Keyforge that increase key cost, and I think that's a good thing. Um, so, but we'll talk about some different ones and how they fit in to other strategies, what they work well with. So, but just to set the stage, of course, the greater idea here is just that we're talking about doing things that increase the cost of keys so that the opponent has to pay more or they have to clear some obstacle in order to forge for normal cost. And yeah, I think pretty much any deck that would benefit from these types of effects. It's just a matter of how they fit into your overall picture. So, all right. I want to start by talking about maybe one of my favorite here, which is Grunt Buggy. Um, Grunt Buggy is this really nice symmetrical effect. It's an artifact. It's only from uh, Age of Ascension, the set two, and it says that for every creature that's power 5 or higher on my side of the board, your keys costs one more. But for every 5 power or higher creature on your side of the board, my keys cost more. So it's a totally symmetrical effect, and it can be hurting both of us at the same time, but it really rewards having board control and yeah, having these big boards. So it's a really fun effect because what it does is it pushes the game on to care more about the board, which I think is generally a nice, fun thing. So yeah, so that's a fun way, and I'll show you a deck at the end that I really love that um, often causes outrageous key costs using that card. Um, Edie is a key cost control card. It increases the cost based on how many cards are in your archives. Um, Edie is really nice if you can combine it with effects that punish your opponent for having too much amber, like too much to protect or interdimensional graft. Things that can turn the high cost into a tempo tool where then you can gain a bunch of amber and reduce their amber. Um, Sometimes with Edie, you want them to forge at the high cost, but oftentimes you're wanting to hold them off until you can do something cool. Um, Edie, by the way, doesn't particularly need you to have board control. It's nice if you can protect it, but Edie is also often very good with recursive strategies using cards like Exhume or Regrowth, so that you can keep bringing it back. You get that archive effect out of it. Maybe stall the opponent. It's really nice. Anguish, on the other hand, does really like board control, and you can have a damaged Anguish on the board with a Grunt Buggy, and then wow, you're really increasing key cost. But Anguish increases key cost based on how damaged it is. Anything that allows you to keep it on the board even after it's damaged, maybe by increasing its power or giving it armor or taunting it, something like that, is very helpful. So it does reward board control. Um, Sensor Chief Garcia increases key cost just on play. Very nice. And that can work well in combo decks where you can maybe play it 2, 3 times in the same turn. Quad Recorder is another one that really rewards board control and uh, and wants you to have multiple houses on the board. Proclamation, on the other hand, wants you to prevent your opponent from having multiple houses on the board. Proclamation is kind of crazy because it's not a really tall order. It's not that difficult to keep your opponent from having three houses of creatures on the board. And so it's, once you have a proclamation on the board, it's going to be most of the game that your opponent's costs are going to be increased by at least two. So then you combine that with a card like Too Much to Protect, and it becomes really powerful. Universal Key Lock is just a really nice. Often it's just a way to delete three amber. If your opponent went to nine, you can increase the cost temporarily, and they spend a little extra. Pismire is really great too, and can be a little more persistent if you have decent board control. Also, Pismire is an example of one that rewards playing against out of set decks because usually you're going to have more mutants if you're the mass mutation deck and they're not. Um, so yeah, those are some examples. Or some of the cards. There are other cards too that aren't in here, like Evil Eye, Lash of Broken Dreams. Uh, there are more. Waking Nightmare. There are even more. But um, but let me go through some examples. So I actually think that's not a great example. That one right there. Um, but yeah, here we have an example of a double Edai deck that probably wants to set up some nice interdimensional graft. Having two of each means it's pretty likely you're gonna be able to punish hard. Um, okay, let me pull Edai off this search because Edai's a good card, so it tends to run in high SAS. Shocking. Um, I thought I took Edai off. Oh, this has other things. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's see. We saw that one. Still seeing just Edai decks up here. Here's a Garcia, but that's not offering a whole lot, especially like compared to what's going on with other stuff like Tribute and Too Much to Protect. Those are doing a lot more work there. Hmm. Okay, I'm coming up a little short on examples, trying to get away from Edai here, but here's one with Grunt Buggy. Now this is interesting because let's see. I'm not immediately impressed. We have Grunt Buggy, we have Bramos, which are too small, Cowfine, Foozle, Ginger Chieftain, two Lollips, and a Rock Hurling Giant. Okay, that's some big stuff. Um, Let me flip over here. Ooh, here's an interesting one. Sasha, this is just a great deck. But Sasha here has a Grunt Buggy, which is going to hold the opponent off a little bit. You have some big creatures, Cowfine, two Drummer Knots, two Ganger Chieftains, um, Dominator. I guess the Yancy games would even count. But then two Martian Gens and a Key Abduction. So you just need to hold your opponent off long enough that you can kind of go into your combo and loop out and win, which is pretty mean. Here's a deck with an Anguish that can take a Gleeful Mayhem hit and immediately increase the cost by 5. That's pretty bonkers. Um, you get into these like 3 or 4 Edis, and that can just be really crazy because you're just always able to do crazy stuff. Okay, let me flip over because I want to show you a deck too that is relatively low SAS for what we typically look at, but often beats higher SAS decks. Not always, but often because of what it has going on. So this is one of my decks, and it has a Grunt Buggy in it, which is very nice. But part of why it's nice is there are just so many creatures that count for it. Bilgam Avalanche and Drummerknot plus Kolth, that's 3. Grok is 4, and then 4 Ganger Chieftains. So 7 creatures in Brobnar that are going to count towards that Grunt Buggy. along with three Indies, a Scullion, an Overlord Wrecking, and an Ortanu. And then Nox usually will count in Untamed. Tantadlin counts, and there's also a Grove Keeper that can grow some of the other creatures and make them count, even though they wouldn't normally. So you kind of just always have stuff that counts for Grunt Buggy. Um, Ways to get Grumpy Buggy back if it's destroyed because of Glimmer and Nepenthe Seed. Um, the things that it's weak against are if it just has a bad draw and doesn't get it till late, or if the opponent can purge it somehow, then it's going to be gone. But generally speaking, this deck can keep a big board out. Even through board wipes, it can put big boards right back out and make that Grunt Buggy count for you. Um, the thing this deck really hates the most is King of the Crag, but because Brobnar is generally not on meta, it doesn't come out much. But I would love to see a good Brobnar in a previous set with a King of the Crag coming back, and that'd be pretty fun. So anyway, that's Mentor Malantroth. That's yeah, I'd say one of my favorite decks, and often punches well above its weight if it can get the Grunt Buggy out. Um, and yeah, that's really all you need it to do. These types of tools, these cost increases, they're just slowing your opponent's game down enough for you to rush ahead, or alternatively, sometimes they're setting up a tempo swing where you can make them go high on amber and then punish them afterward and get some benefit for yourself. So still, I like very obviously a subset of amber control, but one that I think creates a lot of really fun uh, decision space and fun situations where, okay, you're making keys cost this much. I can either choose to make more amber and, risk you punishing it, or I can choose to waste a turn dealing with whatever your amber control tool, your key cost bump is. And I think those are fun situations. So it's a nice, I guess we'll say, sub archetype to have at play. All right, well that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed and maybe this helped you out a little bit. And again, it's not really its own thing, but if you can think about key cost control and how it recognizes it as a pattern and how it fits into different decks, I think it can help you. It certainly helped me. And I hope that you'll be able to get out there and forge some keys. Thanks.